Welcome to Driven by Dreamz. Today's guest is Liz Whitehead, the CEO of Diversity Masterminds in 12.5. She works with small, local, and diverse businesses to leverage the procurement opportunities that business and sustainability certifications provide. Liz is a business development consultant that puts small businesses on the right track to make meaningful relationships with large purchasing organizations, have more productive conversations, and win new business. Tune in to learn more about building lasting relationships and growing your business. Hi, Liz. It's great to have you here.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So, before we start, I'd love to learn more about you. So, I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions and just blurt out the first answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
So, one word that describes your entrepreneurial journey.
Roller coaster.
Book every entrepreneur should read.
Scale Scale Up by Allison Maslin.
Your biggest oops moment in business.
Starting a partnership before I really knew the person I was partnering with.
What's one app that you can't live without?
I have a calendar app called Book Like a Boss, which I love.
Risk taker or overthinker?
Overthinker.
Worst job you ever had?
Babysitting.
Would you rather have unlimited funding or unlimited time?
Unlimited time.
One thing in your office that makes no sense, but you love it.
I have this, I'll show you. This drawing that my kid did for me.
Nice. If you had a clone, what task would you delegate instantly?
Emails.
What's your superpower?
Connecting people.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Liz. And so let's dive in now to the heart of your entrepreneurial journey. So I'm really excited to learn more about the work you're doing with Diversity Masterminds and 12.5. So could you share what inspired you to start those two?
Sure. So I started at 12.5. I was working for an international organization and they wanted me to travel more, but I just had my second baby and what had excited me about the job, the travel and, seeing a bunch of different places was just like not my priority anymore. So I decided to start my own company and I named it 12.5 because my family has a lake house in the Poconos and we started to outgrow it and we built a new house on the same property. So while the initial address was 12, ours was 12.5, 12 and a half. So I named my company after that because when all goes well, that's where I'll be.
Nice. Well, that's an amazing way to name your business. I've heard a lot of different business names, but that's really interesting.
Thanks.
So you mentioned that you were an overthinker. What was the biggest mindset shift that you had to make when transitioning from working for organizations to running your own business?
So I think there's just so much to do when you're running your own business, like all the stuff that's taken care of for you in a company, like payroll and taking your taxes out and determining what you're going to do that day and determining what the company priorities are. Those are all on you. And so I think the biggest thing was doing the things that absolutely had to be done, the revenue generating activities, especially at the beginning, and then putting the other stuff to the side and getting to them later. And I will say, as someone, so I've been in business for 8 years now, and I will say that one of the benefits of really just narrowing down what you want to do in terms of generating revenue, really, one, it helps you pay your bills, but then two, eventually, like things that you thought were really important at the beginning might be less important 1 to 3, 5 years down the road. So just putting them aside for a little bit allows you the freedom to kind of see where your business is going to take you.
Well, I really relate to being an overthinker. I mean, sometimes it's hard for me to prioritize, okay, what's important.
I'm surprised to hear that because you're so young and already a podcast host and talking to strangers and reaching out to them. So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much for it.
Hmm. It took me a while before I was confident enough when I was speaking to people. My first time, I was so hesitant.
hmm Yeah. So I didn't say this was my worst job because it was my hardest job, but But also I learned the most from it was being an environmental fundraiser, and I went door to door and knocked on strangers' doors and asked them for money for for environmental causes. And it was really hard and very frustrating, but if you can do that, you can do anything. And I think the same thing for you, Anishka, when you're, when you go to look for jobs and or starting your own company, that this experience will be really valuable for you.
Yeah, it already I get to learn a lot from people like you who share their journeys, and it's amazing. You believe that business can be a force for good. So, can you share an example where you've seen that belief come to life through your work?
Sure. So I am B Corp certified, and I think B Lab is the organization that administers the B Corp certification, and their whole mission is that business can be a force for good, so that we don't have to always maximize profits at the expense of our people and the planet. So, in a broad perspective, just the fact that that community exists, that people are willing to go through a rigorous certification and say, yes, I'm willing to do these things for people and put profit, on the same level, not above people in the planet. I think that alone is a testament to that. I've also seen how when business owners, one of the things about being an entrepreneur is that you can be really flexible and you can change your mindset as you go. And so I've seen people who, a company in particular, where they were like, well, it's too expensive for me to change my packaging. My packaging is maybe not the most sustainable, but it's too expensive. But by going through a sustainability training, they realized like, oh, if I use bamboo to ship a more sustainable option, then actually my products are lighter. So I save money and the shipping. And so just that the openness to changing your point of view, I think is probably one of the things we need the most. And so I've definitely seen that in my work. But then also just realizing like, oh, I don't have to completely sacrifice profits to run a company that is aligned with my values.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So, how do you help small and diverse businesses break into large procurement ecosystems where relationships are often already established?
That is a great question. And relationships are often already established. One of the things I tell people is that you don't have to be certified to do business with these companies. You don't have to be a part of their supplier development programs because people who are not certified get business every day. But your question about like, all right, so how do I get in when other people have those relationships? And the key is building relationships yourself even if it's not with the buyer, with advocates within that company that will work for you. I'm a big fan of the giving to get philosophy. So you might meet someone where there's not an immediate business need, or you want to sell your products, but they have an existing supplier or something like that. I think one of the best things you can do is maintain a relationship where you're adding value and proving yourself as a resource. Maybe that person is interested in a nonprofit or they have a passion that they are interested in that you can help with. I think there's something like that. Maybe they have a business need that isn't in your space where you're like, well, I mean, you can't hire me to fix that problem, but I know a couple people that I can introduce you to help solve that problem. And the key to getting that information, because that's the next step, is how do you get that information? Is it really listening to people? What I see is probably the biggest thing is they're hungry for a contract. So they talk and talk and talk and talk. And they talk about, this is my capability statement. This is what I can do for you, as opposed to slowing down and listening to what the problem is that people need to solve.
You mentioned that you love connecting people. So,
Mhm.
in situations like that, how do you help connect people?
Yeah. So Anishka, when I was starting my business, I was like, this was my biggest question, which was like, how do I monetize something that's kind of intangible? Like, how do I make money doing something that I want to do anyway, which is connect a person with an opportunity. And so the way I typically do it is I put myself in a position where I can say, one, where I'm reliable, right? You have to start with integrity, where people are like, okay, I believe that if Liz is going to recommend to me somebody, it's not just because that they're paying her to do it. It's not just because it's her client. It's because she really believes in the company. So I think that's the first thing is like you have to have a reputation where people, believe what you're doing. And then the second part is you really need to know, again, listen to like what the problems are and constantly be cultivating relationships that don't give you an immediate return, if you will. I think you can make the case that relationships have a return of their own, just, being connected with people. But even if it's not going to immediately boost my business, somebody thought I should know this person, or this person reached out to me because they thought we should know each other. What do they have to offer? What can I offer them? And being open to that there might not be an immediate connection, but down the road, you might be able to connect them with an opportunity.
So just quick question. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an extrovert.
Okay. So that's why
Yeah.
it's easier for you to make those connections?
I think it's less draining for me because I know plenty of introverts that do really well at networking and really well at business development tasks. They just need a little more time to recharge afterward. I think for me, one of the things that helps me make the connections is yes, it doesn't drain me to be out at the events and to talk to people. Although I have to say that's probably changed a little over time. Um, but also just being organized, like being organized and having a way that you're like, I remember what that person does. I know how, or I think I know someone who does that. How do I find out who that person is? Keeping organized with your contacts. And I do not have like a sophisticated system. I have an off the shelf CRM, and my inbox and my LinkedIn.
So do you have any advice for people who are shy or introverts to network well?
I love that question. I do. And one thing I would, because I actually do a talk on building a professional network. And so the thing is, everybody has a network. So you have a network already. I have a network. Your parents have networks. The key is tapping into them in a way that's comfortable and authentic for you. So I think so many people think that the key to networking or building a network is going into a room, an exhibit hall, and just glad handing people like, here's my card. This is what I do. But there's with technology, with the virtual world we live in, there's so many other ways to do it. And so what I wouldn't encourage a shy person to go and like, don't be yourself and go out there and just like talk to people at an event because it's going to drain you. And if it's not enjoyable for you, like if it's not fun, it's not productive. So I encourage people to do things like, what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? And where does that passion overlap with people that can be a part of your professional network in a good way? For me, since I work with small businesses, one of the best ways for me to meet people, and one thing I encourage all different types of people to do is if you get a certification or join an organization, get involved right away, get on a committee and all that stuff. So there you're not, yeah, you might have to go to some big events. Certainly, if you're on a steering committee for a big event, they're kind of going to want you to show up there. But before you even go, you'll be meeting all the other people. You'll be meeting the other stakeholders. You'll be conversing with the vendors, making the plans. So there's lots of ways to do it. I think that where people can lean into what is comfortable for them.
You mentioned doing what you're passionate about, right? So when did you discover that you like connecting people, that that was something you enjoyed?
So my second job out of college, so after I did the environmental fundraising, I worked for a regional affiliate of WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. Then it was called WPEO. Now it's called WeBank New York. And I was in this role where I was helping people process their certification and organizing events. And what I did, just what people wanted was like the small business owners wanted connections with the corporation. So to the extent I could, I tried to make that happen. And what the corporations wanted was, I need a supplier that can do this. I want a supplier in this area who can solve this problem. And so even though it wasn't technically my job to do that, what I realized was like by doing that, it made my stakeholders a lot happier and it made my job a lot easier by being able to do it. Now, I still had to have the bandwidth to do the rest of my job. But that what I realized there was one, I had a skill for it, that it wasn't just, it didn't come naturally to everybody. And two, it was really valuable to people. You could get immediate gratification in seeing a business owner win a contract or make a connection they hadn't had before. So it was great.
Thanks for sharing that. You've worked with businesses that are newly certified and others that have been certified for over a decade. So, what are the most common reasons businesses struggle to generate ROI from their diversity certification?
Um, Excellent question. I think the biggest reason is it all comes down to bandwidth. As a small business owner, that answer won't be surprising to for most of your audience or other entrepreneurs. And I actually said this recently today. Like, I prefer to work with a CEO that has a team, or I typically work with a CEO that has a team if I'm doing one-on-one consulting, because the CEO tends to know what they need to do. And if they were going to do it, they do it, right? The reason they haven't is because there's other fires to put out. They have more immediate concerns than following up on, a 6-month-old lead that has a Byzantine procurement process, right? So the key part is one, having that team to help. Usually with the types of business owners I work with, the CEO is still like the biggest breadwinner, if you will. They're still the biggest salesperson because it's their company. But having that team to do the sort of nitty-gritty details, the like, yeah, we did follow up with them and sent them this, but maybe we should send them something else next time. Or this, we sent them this 6 weeks ago, but maybe we should follow up now. They just won an award. Let's say congratulations. All those things that in reality a CEO would love to be doing, but probably just doesn't have the time and energy to do. I think the other thing is, so like, I think that's the main thing is bandwidth, which it won't be surprising. I think the second thing that might be surprising to some people is that you need to follow up more than you think you do. I often find myself encouraging people to send that next email. It's like, well, I know they didn't respond to me. Should I send something again? And I'm not a big fan of just like sending the same email over. Like, did you see my email moving to the top of your inbox? But if you have a reason to reach out, if they're not thinking about you in terms of following up, then they're not thinking about you. So it doesn't matter if you get in touch with them. They're not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person responded to me 4 weeks after they sent their first email. There's a fine line. Certainly people are too persistent. But in my experience, the business owners that have certified for a long time, have great relationships, but aren't getting just like converting those sales, it's because they're not doing quite enough follow up.
I've faced that sometimes when I reach out to people on my podcast and they don't respond. I'm like, I don't want to be annoying, but I also would like to I want to reach out again and see if they didn't just didn't see it.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what is your rule for follow up? Like, how often do you follow up?
I do it like 2 to 3 weeks later, usually. Or those notifications that come up in Gmail, like you sent this
Oh
seven
yeah. Do
days
you want
ago,
to
but
send a
these people
nudge?
didn't reply. So I just write their name down and I'm like, I wait a couple of weeks and then I reach out again. And then if they don't
That's
respond
great.
after that, then I don't.
I love that system. Yeah, Google can be a little stalkery where they're like, "You sent this 2 days ago." I'm like, "Relax." Like, let that person live. So I think that's a great strategy, which is like, yeah, let me write it down. And then if 2 weeks later nothing's happened, then I'll respond. Because you're absolutely right. Someone could want to. I had this experience recently with someone I very much want to talk to. And I was looking for her email and I just couldn't find it to respond. And then I forgot about it for a couple days. And then I found it in my texts. It wasn't an email at all. Like, I remembered the message and I was like, did I respond to her? I wanted to respond to her. And then I was looking for something else in my text. I was like, oh, she texted me. That's why I couldn't find it. So make it easy for people. Sometimes they do. And also, like, I think it's really good to believe in yourself, right? Like, you have something that people want to do. Like you have the opportunity to give entrepreneurs exposure. A lot of the business owners I work with is like they have a solution that you need. So you should reach out and talk to them. Maybe not on Google's schedule though.
Yeah, otherwise we would just be sending emails every 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Like we got it.
Well, you talked about the need for a custom strategy. So, what factors should entrepreneurs consider when crafting their roadmap to maximize certification?
So I think there's a couple of things that I start with their clients. So I'm a big fan of thinking of like, where's the money coming in first? And where are your current clients versus the clients you want to do business with? So, for example, you might have a ton of retail clients and you're like, well, I really want to get into healthcare. That's great. Um, but I would say, let's work on your past performance. Let's maximize that while diversifying those streams. Like, let's not just say, okay, retail, we have a couple of retail clients. So that's by the wayside. Now we're going to branch into new things. The other thing is to the extent your past performance, and most of the business owners I'll talk to will be like, well, I've done a lot of work in the retail space, but I could certainly do financial or healthcare. With a lot of these big companies, they want to see that you have past performance in their industry. So, to the extent that you can connect what you've done in this other industry to their industry is important. Like, for example, if you're working in retail and you're doing some sort of tech thing, like we've really protected our customers' data and the data privacy when they're making payments and things like that. That might translate really well over to the financial space, something like that. Um, that is a really key aspect. So starting with your past performance and then your clients. And then the other thing I would say this is probably the third thing that people who are certified don't maybe do enough is like the market research. Um, what are those companies buying and what do they really need from you? And so again, the question is, well, how do I find that out? One is your relationships. The other is their annual reports. How are they showing up in the news? If they're showing up in the news, that's probably a pain point. So what are the ways that you can help them with that?
You mentioned the ability to translate something you know from another industry to the industry you want to go in. I guess that's also skill, right? Wording it the right way. So it shows that you know what you're doing. Do you have any tips for how to do that effectively?
Yeah, it's so important. So you're working with these big companies, right? And they, especially if you're talking about supplier development people, supplier inclusion, they know a little about a lot of things. So it's so important to connect the dots for them. Oftentimes people will say, like I provide this solution and this is our services and this is what we do and leave it there. What I find clients need to do is say, this is the person we typically talk to at your company. This is the value that they expect. And this is why our clients keep hiring us back because these are the things we do. If you're just like, we provide tech solutions to the financial industry, it's like, okay, that's great. I don't know when to call you. I don't know what problem I'm having that you can actually come in and make a solution for. So those are the things where it's really important for your messaging to connect those dots.
So, tell us a bit about your program, Diversity Mastermind. So, what's one surprising insight that participants often walk away with after completing the course?
Diversity Masterminds. So I work with people one on one, and then Diversity Masterminds people can just download and take on their own. So I think the main thing that people walk away from was that I have been spinning my wheels for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And if I had taken this course sooner, I would have been so much more prepared for the last conference I went to or going to the last educational cohort or the last interaction I had with a potential advocate for myself. I think those are the main things is that it's not, like I said, it's not rocket science. A lot of CEOs probably know how to do this. It's more like, how do I organize it? How do I approach it in a step-by-step fashion so that it really works for me and I have a system that I can use again and again?
So, what's one lesson that you had to learn the hard way as an entrepreneur? And how did it shape how you operate today?
That's a really good one. Okay, one lesson I learned the hard way was trusting people with too much too soon. And so that's happened to I am a full believer in partnerships. That's how I've scaled my company, is working with other business owners that I know and trust. Um, but not everyone that I started working with, you know, was a winner. Like all the people you see on my website now, anyone you see me promoting is like, aces in my book. But I learned that you really need to start small with people in terms of building that relationship. So where someone might be like, let's sign something, let's start marketing ourselves together. The key is really making sure you're on the same page and that you're going to present yourself the same way. So sometimes starting really small with like a webinar or, a podcast or doing something, smaller jointly together can see, all right, how do we work together? Is this really going to flow? Do we really have the same values and vision in mind for how this is going to go?
You mentioned that that was one of your biggest oops in businesses, right? Of forming a partnership for someone you didn't know that
Yep.
long. So how do
Yeah.
you being trusting is a good thing, but how do you stop yourself from being over trusting?
Yeah. I mean, I really think so. I'm an optimistic person and I tend, there's a lot of people out there who are just like waiting to get taken advantage of. And I understand it because small business owners, like, once you put CEO on your LinkedIn, once you put it out there, it's like, oh, the emails start flooding in and people are like, I'm going to change your business. I'm going to do all this stuff. Like, there are a lot of, and maybe some of those people can make good on those promises and maybe they can't. I don't know. Um, but what I do know is that when someone promises the world like right at the beginning, that's something where you're like, there's just no easy fixes. So I think just knowing that it's not going to be easy. There's no easy fixes. There's no one main thing that's going to, you know, bring you like a huge client or like that's going to change your life. It's going to be small incremental steps toward that big life-changing situation.
How do you say no to those partnerships? I know saying no to someone can be hard sometimes. How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say no to partnerships. I think sometimes people have to say no to clients too. Sometimes you have to say this isn't working out. I think it can be tough, but I also think setting expectations from the beginning, which is that, and I think a phrase that really helps with that is like, this is the way I usually do this, even if you haven't done it before. Like the way I usually do this is, I start out with a small like joint project. We see how that goes, and then we'll revisit, right? And so setting that expectation at the beginning that it's like, we're not going to assign things. We're not going into, whatever your boundaries are, that this is what we're going to do. Then they know, like, oh, it's not personal. Like, this is the way I typically do things. And then they also know what to expect that, okay, this isn't like a lifelong partnership. We're not married forever. We're going to revisit this. And they'll have an opportunity too to walk away.
Well, that's great advice, Liz. Thank you. So I think
Sure.
this is a good place to start wrapping this up. Do you have any other final thoughts or advice?
No, one of the things I always like to say to entrepreneurs is like, it's the hard and the great part about this is like no one's going to give you permission. So just start. Just go out there and do it. No one's going to be like, you know what, you would make a great entrepreneur. I mean, maybe it happens for some people, but for the most part, you just have to sort of believe in yourself and do it.
What would you say for those people who are waiting for validation sometimes, who kind of need that before they start?
I would say you have my permission. If you need permission, you've got it. And also charge more than you think you should. That's what I would tell them.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and I really enjoyed our conversation today, so thank you.
Thank you.